Hello, everyone. It's Rory and Daniel here at that Eurovision site, and we are looking back at probably one of the most interesting national finals to take place this season. It was Ireland's national selection for Eurovision 2024. There were six songs that took part in Eurosong 2024, and it was won by the one and only Bambie Thug, who will be going on to represent Ireland with their song Doomsday Blues. So, I mean, first off, what do you make of the winner, and what do you make of like Bambi making it to Malmo?
Uh, a very good winner, and I think the best shot Ireland's had in quite a few years since they last got to the final, of making it to the final. I think Bambi's a great artist. I've been listening to their album recently. It's very varied, but there's something on that album for everyone, I'd say,
Okay.
Ex except some parish priests, maybe.
Well, to be honest, already the fact that they've continued to be getting uh sort of sins cast upon them by like what's it, priests and stuff like that, being like, I absolve you of your sins and stuff. They're still saying um like in the papers in Ireland, they're still saying like, oh, we're screwed as a country, we're done for now. It's like just because a non-binary witch is representing Ireland at Eurovision, that's the thing that's really put the nail in the coffin. Like, make it make
You-
sense anyway.
You'd think they'd have done it for Justin.
The less said about Dustin the turkey, the better. Let's just say with that, okay? No, um, but yeah, no. I mean, I'm really happy with it. I feel very proud, I guess, of the fact that Bambi is going on to represent us. Because again, first time that a non-binary person has ever gone on to, represent any country at Eurovision that's who's open sort of at the time of competing. And I think that's something that we should be really proud of. And
Yeah,
I mean, who would have seen that that would have come from Ireland of all countries? You know what I mean? And
yeah.
it just feels a little bit surreal, to say the least. Um, but I'm really happy with it. I love the genre of the song, or the lack of genre, to be honest, because there's so many different ideas to play around with it. And I mean, it might not potentially be the most commercial song, but I don't think it's trying to be. And I think people
Yeah.
need to stop putting this idea of, oh, it's not getting radio play, therefore it's not going to do well at Eurovision. You can get amazing results at Eurovision and not
Yeah.
have a single like play on a radio station. So I think, people need to calm
Yeah.
down, I think, on that
Yeah.
front.
And
So
even if you do get radio plays, it doesn't mean you will do well. I think like Rock Stars Germany was on radio all the time, came last.
that, and I mean, also, I mean, I wrote a song as well that was
Yeah.
all over the radio stations here. And then obviously, lo and behold, May finished second last. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. So people need to calm down a little bit on that front, I think. But other than that, it's been good. So like sort of looking at the show overall, I mean, what did you make of the show? What did you think? How did you think RT kind of pulled the show together?
I think there was some sound issues that were quite obvious, but you could tell. I think it was a step up from the Late Late Show with the Eurosong on it to Eurosong Late Late Show. Because I think the year before it was just like same studio packed in, just performing on the floor, really. This year they had a stage and everything. I think you can tell they're at least trying now, which maybe wasn't something you could have said previously.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's commendable from RT that they're actually willing to throw a few euros in the pot for this, for Eurovision. Um, and I think it definitely needed to happen. I think, there's been a lot of talk about like, oh, Ireland's losing its 7 year, like its dominance because of like now Sweden catching up with the seven wins. And I think in part that is how it's been fueling it, but then also at the same time, Ireland has now like got one of the worst like track records in recent years in
Yeah.
terms of like qualifications. So I think something needed to be shaken up anyway. So I'm happy that, there was a like there wasn't a studio audience kind of panel thing. Instead, it was a bit more intimate with the sort of tables with the chairs. Like it felt very like speakeasy jazz club, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it
And
was interesting to see how it kind of played out. But you know, it's still the Late Late Show. It's still RT, so it's still gonna have a few hiccups. And I mean, for all the RT were great for allowing us to see it come to life, because for those of you who might not have known, I was lucky enough to go to Dublin the day before the selection and interview all the acts, and they were lovely, lovely, lovely people. So like we also kind of got to see like how the stage was sort of lit up and how it was arranged and everything. It's still quite small, but they're at least being a little bit more creative, which I think is all right, you know. If it's better than, like how you said, like going from a floor to a tiny stage, that still it's still a stage,
yeah.
like we should be celebrating these kind of small wins. Um but yeah, I mean, sort of just looking at some of the other sort of results from Eurosong. I mean, like Ailsa came second with Gatubin. I mean, again, the first song that's been properly in Irish for years, basically, and it managed to come in second place. I mean, like surely that's also been like something to be proud about.
Yeah, especially with not only being in Irish, but being explicitly about promoting the Irish language. I can see people at home in Ireland sitting there thinking, I could sing a song in Irish and it might do well. Whereas before, they would be like, why would I sing a song in Irish? Who wants to listen to that?
That's it. And the thing is, as well, like our Irish at the minute is really struggling in terms of the number of people speaking it. So the fact that this song kind of addresses that and helps to sort of get a conversation going about that, I think it's a really beautiful sort of allegory of everything, because
Yeah.
I guess for people who aren't in Ireland, who weren't in Ireland around the time of when it was going on, basically there was a debate about whether or not Irish should even be included in our sort of final examinations in secondary school before we go into third level education. And given the fact that Irish is the national language, but barely anyone can speak it because no one wants to learn how to speak it, this kind of song kind of was a nice antithesis to that,
Yeah.
where they were able to actually get people talking about like, oh, what does it mean to be singing in Irish, like why is she singing in Irish, what's she talking about in Irish. And bear in mind, these are phrases that like every Irish person would learn in school, like Amul Cadagum Dulgaji an Lahris is like ingrained into my memory, let's just put it that way. um but I'm happy with it. I mean, sort of looking at some of the other results from the show, I mean, again, I guess Love Like Us coming joint second was also a little bit of a surprise, because I think a fair few of us kind of had written it off, and then all of a sudden it kind of got the 12 points from the international jury. I mean, like what did you make of those results, because they were a bit interesting.
If I was going to expect anyone to give Next in Line 12 points, the international jury would have been the last people I would have expected to give them it.
Like, I just don't understand how that came about. I want to know who was on the jury, the international jury, because that was a choice, to say the least. But with that, I mean, obviously, we still had Bambie Thug still come out on top with the national jury as well as the televote. So that in itself was, still pretty good. I mean, are there any other kind of sort of results in this that you were a bit surprised by? I mean, how was it for you?
Not particularly, because with the quality of the songs, there wasn't much room to be surprised because there wasn't much room for a shock winner when they could all have been worthy winners.
Yeah, and that in a way is it's good, that the fact
Yeah.
that we couldn't actually call the outright winner sort of straight away, and a lot of the other times we've seen, or a lot of the other sort of editions of the show that we've seen, they've always been sort of predictable. You can tell who's won. Like
Yeah,
Brooke, you were able to tell that Brooke was able to win in 2022.
yeah,
um I do think, well, Wild Youth was likely to have won due to name recognition last year, but
yeah,
then obviously I guess people were more willing to try and have Connolly come through. So at least it looks like there's been more of a shift this time around, which is kind of nice to think, I think, But with
yeah.
that, I mean, sort of looking at that, I mean, what do you think Ireland can do now to sort of capitalize on this new kind of uh rebirth, I guess, of interest in the show? Because obviously it seems that more people have been interested in watching the show, and the show's production level is seeming to go up. I mean, surely this is only like a positive story, and it can only really go up from here, can't it?
Yeah, I do know that they did try this year for a standalone national final, but the whole financial scandal kind of threw that in the air a bit. I don't think it needs to be like they don't need to do Melfest, but a standalone national final where people can get the name recognition for a show like standalone Eurosong, even if it was something like the Czech selection, it's better than being something else. It's its own thing in its own right, and that is how you build. And you can see even the Czech Republic, they are slowly building, and I think it can only continue to go upwards.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing is as well that like having a standalone national final really just ups Ireland's standing a little bit, because for so many people, hearing it on the Late Late Show, when Eurofans hear that it's going to be on the Late Late Show, everyone's just like, ugh, like having an actual standalone show would just help to sort of give us a better sort of standing, and,
Yeah.
and give us a little bit more respect, I guess is the right word. Obviously, a lot of it is down to financial issues, and especially in the wake of the scandal surrounding former Late Late Show host slash Eurosong host Ryan Tubridy. It's it's now going to take another little while, but I think next year, I think they are looking at bringing in a sort of standalone national final. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will happen. Um, it's the least that we can hope for. And depending on how well Bambi does, I think regardless, the production level is going to go up at least, and because people will start to sort of experiment a little bit more. And I guess this is also just a thing here. I mean, like, how do you think Bambi's win will affect how other singers will then send songs to Eurosong in sort of future years to come?
I think not just Bambi, but all of the songs this year showed that there's more room to experiment because there's a lot more out there songs this year, like Doomsday Blue, Good Tubman. Even something like Judas, I don't think you'd see maybe 5 years ago in a Euro song. I think it's
100%.
a lot more reflective of what the actual music scene would be like, and it's not just songs written in Sweden.
Not calling out anyone specifically there. Well,
No.
but yeah, no, definitely. I think in a way that is also really good to see that it's fostering a bit of talent from within Ireland, and actually looking inside of the country and not having to think, oh, this is a song that we wrote for Eurovision, and I think it it shows now that people are starting to take it a
Yeah.
bit more seriously than how they might have previously done maybe a couple of years ago, which, coming from the most successful country in Eurovision up until last year, is kind of ridiculous to think that that is something that's a rhetoric that people are talking about. But such is always the way. But yeah, definitely, I'm hoping that there'll be a little bit more sort of variety in terms of the songs. I mean, we had a great amount of
Yeah.
variety this year. We had punk, we had sort of so many genres in whatever Bambie Thug song is. But we also had pop. We also had sort of R&B in there too, and like a little bit of Afrobeat. Like there's a lot of options, and it's nice to know that we're not just sort of relying on the same sort of, oh, basic standard Melfest reject kind of
Yeah.
format. So I guess sort of maybe just like a final question. I mean, just like now that we know that Bambi is now going to go to Eurovision, A, what changes would you like to see in their staging to see how they're going to elevate it in Malmö? And B, where would you like to see it place?
I'd like to see it make the final first and foremost, but also I think the staging they did very well with what they could work with on the Eurosong stage. So I think that they could. It's maybe a case of just blowing it up for a bigger, better stage. Because I think everything they did well. So I'm excited. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the same for me as well. I mean, the first hurdle isn't even trying to get a good place in the final. The first hurdle is even just to get to the final. Um, but there are some very good concepts that are on the stage show, and they have said that that now that they have a larger stage to work with, they are going to have a lot more sort of experimentation. They're going to try a lot more different sort of ideas. So again, the whole idea of Bambi Thug as a concept anyway is just like if you try to put them in a box, they're going to obviously go out of their way to go out of the box.
Yeah,
So, expect the unexpected, I think is the right way of to sort of
yeah.
describing it. But yeah, I'd like to say that it would get into the final. I the patriot inside me would sort of like to think, oh, maybe it could be like bottom left hand side of the scoreboard or something like that. I don't think it'll get a top 10. I think it's a little bit too experimental to reach top 10. But if we can at least get on the left hand side of the scoreboard, I'd be absolutely thrilled. And it would mean that, you know, the whole idea of doing Eurovision in Ireland will have a bit of a renaissance and who knows, maybe this could be the beginning of a whole new era for Ireland in the same way that we have had in the UK, for example.
Yeah.
So, maybe we'll see. We'll see, I guess. But
I I don't really think it necessarily matters if you even make the final because the whole narrative of Eurovision Korea Destroyer, they've already demolished it.
definitely. I mean, already within like Sam Ryder, we've seen like, yeah, Sam Ryder didn't win, but look at how well he's doing. May Muller is still continuing on with all these amazing opportunities. Um, I can't really say particularly if there's many Irish people that have
Yeah,
kind of
but
done well with that. I mean,
if you
Jedward,
look at Bambi, they're not even on the plane yet, and they're already very popular now. Like song in viral 50, like 200,000 monthly listeners now, up from maybe 20,000 before.
I mean, that's true. It makes it a lot more like thing is as well, Eurovision, it doesn't allow you to vote down anyone. You can only
Yeah,
vote up. So in itself, I mean, the sort of meteoric rise, surely that should be a sign of good things to come.
yeah.
So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, as an Irish person, I'd love to see my country make it into the final again. And if it is something that's just so experimental and so out of the box, like how Doomsday Blue is, I
Yeah.
will not be complaining whatsoever. So fingers crossed it'll all get very well. Um, but yeah, so I mean, obviously we've been talking about how this is going. What do you think about this? Like let us know how you've been feeling. What do you think about this selection? Were you happy with the winner? Do you think that maybe one of the other six acts should have gone to Malmo instead? Please do let us know how things are going. Let us know what you think. Do you agree with us? Do you not agree with us? This is a conversation here. We'd love to know what you think. Also, please continue to follow us on all of our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, Threads, Blue Sky. There's probably some other one that I've probably forgotten at this point. Uh, this is one of them anyway.
We're
We're
probably on it. If you know it, we're on it.
exactly. So we're gonna make our way around the like basically all the places. We're a bit like was it like Japanese knotweed? It's just like we'll just infest every
Yeah.
single area that's just possible. But yes, so in the meantime, also subscribe down to our YouTube channel, like and hit the bell so you always know when we release a new episode of the podcast, or for example some of these things as well, because obviously we're in the midst of national final season, so we're going to have a lot of these to come, so be ready. And yeah, shall we say goodbye?
Goodbye.
Bye.